The power of a name can't be understated, and certain names just scream superstar. Frank Zappa, Johnny Cash, Randy Rhoads. But for every one of those, you also come across a Reginald Dwight or Farouk Balsar who end up adopting a moniker that conveys a little more rock and roll attitude. Today, we're looking at how 7 famous guitarists got their stage names. Let's dive in. There's one guitarist who above all embodies the rock star image. Tattoos, low-strung Les Paul, cigarette hanging from his mouth, a mop of hair contained by a top hat. You know him as Slash. A name that was given to Saul Hudson by famed character actor Seymour Cassel. One of those actors who's played countless small parts, but you never know his name. As a young teen growing up in LA, Saul became friends with the actor's son, Matt Cassel. The artist, soon to be known as Slash, found himself in numerous parties hosted by Matt's semi-famous father. He would mingle with actors, porn stars, even once meeting the Rolling Stones at one of Seymour's get-togethers. Basically living out the dream of every high schooler in existence. Well, one day, Slash was zipping around the house when Seymour said, "Hey Slash, where you going? Where you going, Slash, huh?" Well, the name stuck, and years later, Seymour explained why he came up with it. Apparently, the name embodied the fact that Slash was always running around from one scheme to the next. Quick, sharp, to the point, there 1 second, gone the next. Whew. Slash. Darrell Abbot wasn't always known as Dimebag Darrell. In fact, his first stage name was Diamond Darrell Lance. A huge fan of Van Halen, this moniker was an ode to lead singer David Lee Roth, aka Diamond Dave. The exact details as to how Diamond Darrell became Dimebag are a little fuzzy. What we do know is that the name Diamond Darrell was a little too glam rock for the sound that Pantera was becoming known for. On top of that, Darrell Abbot had an affinity for smoking pot, which will often be sold in a small 1-gram bag retailing for $10, a dime bag. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I've always thought that the name Prince was a made-up stage name. Well, it turns out Prince's given name was Prince Rogers Nelson. So that's not overly interesting. What is interesting is the origins of the name that Prince went by from 1993 to 2000. Prince and his record label Warner Brothers had a strained relationship at best in the early 90s. Prince had over 500 songs recorded and he wanted to release them, whereas Warner Brothers wanted him to do a more traditional album cycle, releasing an album every couple years and a tour to support it. Feeling stifled, Prince would protest his contractual entrapment, writing "slave" on his cheek when he performed live. As the ultimate middle finger to Warner Brothers, Prince changed his name to an unpronounceable love symbol in 1993. This proved to be a marketing nightmare for the label and the press, who began to refer to Prince as the artist formerly known as Prince. The new name / icon merged the traditional male and female symbols, epitomizing gender fluidity, also making a pretty awesome guitar design. When Prince's contractual obligations to Warner Brothers ended in 2000, he went back to his old name. The artist formerly known as Prince became the artist formerly known as the artist formerly known as Prince. You know him as the guitarist for the group U2. The Edge was given the name David Evans at birth. The young Dave was a quiet but highly intelligent child, aspiring to become a doctor or an engineer. His childhood friend Paul Hewson, aka Bono, had dubbed him with the name Inchicore after a small suburb outside of Dublin, a name that Dave wasn't overly fond of. The exact origins of the name The Edge are disputed, but it's thought that he was given the name for his sharp facial features as well as his sharp mind. More than happy to shed his old nickname, Dave embraced The Edge. Once you get past the KFC container on Brian Carroll's head, you can appreciate what a phenomenal guitarist Buckethead truly is. So where did this name come from? Well, according to a rare interview done with the masked six-stringer, he was raised in a chicken coop by chickens. One day, the birds turned on him, scratching and pecking apart his face, causing him to wear the Michael Myers mask he has become synonymous with. As for the KFC bucket, it's an homage to all the chickens who were fried for food. Apparently, he channels their souls through his playing. There's also another explanation he once offered. He was watching the film Halloween 4, eating chicken, and was inspired to buy a mask just like the one worn by the film's antagonist. According to Buckethead in a 1996 Guitar World magazine, "I was eating it and I put the mask on and then the bucket on my head. I went to the mirror, I just said, Buckethead. That's Buckethead right there. It was just one of those things. After that, I wanted to be that thing all the time." So you decide which one you believe to be true. Johnny Ramone's stage name can be traced back to the former bassist of the Fab Four, Paul McCartney. While on the road in 1960 with a band called the Silver Beatles, soon to be known as simply the Beatles, the group decided to jazz it up a little bit and adopt showbiz names. Paul McCartney picked the name Paul Ramone because it sounded cool and exotic. Well, fast forward to 1974, and a young punk rock group comprised of Douglas Colvin, John Cummings, and Jeff Hyman is in its infancy. Doug decides to adopt the stage name Dee Dee Ramone as an homage to Paul's nickname in the Silver Beatles. The band chooses to name themselves the Ramones, each member adopting the last name. And last on our list is heavy metal legend known for his work with the Prince of Darkness as well as Black Label Society, Zakk Wylde, also known as Zakk Wylde. Zakk was the third guitarist to play in Ozzy's solo band, preceded by the legendary Randy Rhoads and Jakey Lee. When Jeff joined the band, Ozzy told him that he needed to come up with a stage name. One night, the guitarist was stressing over this as he watched music videos when the popular singer Kim Wilde came on. Jeff was enamored by her beauty. His exact words are a little more colorful. So the next day at rehearsal, Ozzy Osbourne asks him what his stage name is going to be. Partially inspired by his own last name Wylde, he says Zakk Wylde, like his sister Kim. The name Zakk being a shout out to the TV show Lost in Space, which had a character named Dr. Zachary Smith. It's all spelled wrong because it looks cooler. And if you think Zakk Wylde has a cool name, you should see what he named his kids. There you have it, how 7 famous guitarists got their stage names. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to take a second to recommend 2 amazing rock and roll bios, both of which I'll link to down in the description. The first is Slash's autobiography, truly a tale of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I'm about halfway through it and I'm loving it. The second is Anthony Kiedis' Scar Tissue, a must read I've personally flipped through about 4 times. This man has lived. If you like these kind of musical facts, check them out. Why not hear it from the horse's mouth? Thank you all for watching, and a big thank you to everyone who supports my channel through Patreon. You guys make these videos possible, and I'll forever be grateful. I'm Samurai Guitarist, and if you dig around my videos for a bit, you can find out why I went with that name. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.